Hello, my name's Johnathan Blowers. I've been in the construction industry for over 40 years. I've been in passive house now for 10 years. And before that, in 2007, I had my first introduction to zero carbon construction and the difficulties to what that brings. And we've been learning ever since. So I'm up here working with Pure Haus. They've done now a couple of really good passive houses, and yeah, we really believe in how we're going to change the construction industry and make passive house or passive house standards, or getting up to passive house standards, the norm, the standard construction for today, instead of a bit of brick, a bit of block and a little bit of insulation in between, which is considered traditional. But we want to have a look at passive house, or the principles of. Now, passive house isn't anything new. It's been around for thousands of years. Ever since we've been around on this earth, we've always wanted to be comfortable. We've wanted to be warm. We've wanted to fit comfortably within our environment. So we've always used products to keep ourselves warm or cool. And we term these as earth products: straw, clay, various types of things that come from our amazing earth. And these things are something which we've always used. So that is the traditional construction method for me. From 1893 to 1912, a ship called the Fram was actually the first registered working passive house. It was a polar ship from Norway. So it sailed the Arctic and Antarctic for a number of years, and that had all the principles that we use today for passive house construction. Now, in the early 90s, two professors, Bo Adamson and Wolfgang Feist, they put together all the mathematic formulas and done all the calculations to what we need to achieve what we term as a passive standard today, where we can take this build and we can put it together so we don't need to use additional heating other than passive living and what we do today. So they've come up with the 5 principles of what you need to achieve that. The first one is insulation, good quality insulation. Obviously, to build up the U values of your walls to keep that energy in. Then that leads to MVHR. Well, mechanical ventilation and heat recovery, it's just ventilation, it's just airflow, how we can control that environment which we're in. Mechanical ventilation and heat recovery is a necessary part of passive house. It all comes together with the 5 principles. So that leads us to air tightness. If we have a well insulated box and we have no leaks, no air transfer within that environment, we can control it. So we've got good insulation, we've got good ventilation to keep the air extracted and new air in, and keep a healthy environment. So air tightness is key. The next thing is cold bridge or thermal bridge. This is where we lose energy, lose the heat from our buildings, potentially. It could be a piece of steel which transfers through walls. It could be a piece of timber. It could be anything and everything that will transfer different temperatures from A to B. It's a bridge for temperature, thermal loss to travel through. And of course, that also means that we need windows to make up for the potential loss. Nowadays, we have incredible stuff for windows. Glass, triple glazed glass with good thermal possibilities and very little frame, because your heat loss of your windows is largely through the frame, not through the glass, because the glass can be designed to hold heat in and to get thermal gain and to prevent heat loss. But the frame itself is where we start losing stuff. It's actually a cold bridge or a thermal bridge where we could potentially lose stuff. So they're the 5 basic principles, and they're very easy. They're just basics. So what we're going to look at is, why do we do this? Well, the reason is, one of the reasons is fuel poverty. Fuel poverty is something which I find very upsetting because it's unnecessary. We're not talking about a few hundred people or a few hundred families. We're talking about tens of thousands of families around the UK that can't put gas or heating into their properties. So they sit there cold, they can't cook, they can't keep warm. They're in a really unhealthy environment, and financial strain on these poor families is horrendous. All because how we build today and so-called traditional building. Okay, so that leads to something else, which is gas and various things and the carbons that we produce. What is it doing to the planet? Well, we live on this amazing little planet, this rock that floats around, and we actually live just on the crust. That crust is very fragile, and the damage and the interference we're doing to that is massive. Overpopulation. The human race is growing at a rate that is unsustainable on this planet. The amount of carbons that we're producing is destroying the planet, is killing stuff off, is bringing in climate change. Now, climate change used to be something, we'll talk about that in the future. Well, the future's here. We have climate change. Everybody sees it. You may not want to recognize it, but it's here. So therefore, climate change is a massive thing. We know full well that it's really going to affect every single person on this planet. So we need to look at that, and how do we deal with that? Control on population is a good thing, but we can't do that. So what do? Carbon capture. We need to look at how we can absorb and store and keep those carbons that we're producing. Cut down the sulfurs and stuff which cause acid rain and other stuff to prevent stuff from growing. So we need to look at the whole structure of what we're doing, and we start with making Passive House, making it more affordable, making it more approachable by people, and people to have a better understanding. So you can see all the positives for building and constructing stuff in a good way. So we keep our insulation, we got our air tightness, we've cancelled out our thermal bridges by design. We've got good ventilation, because Passive House isn't just about saving energy, which of course it does. It also gives us an opportunity to use earth products, because we can use clay, we can use straw, we can use dupe, we can use hessian, and all these different things that this amazing earth provides us, we can use to build, and they're all good thermal mass, they're all good insulators. So what we're doing is creating a healthy environment. So I have seen over the past 10 years many families who have health problems, and those health problems can be to some extent controlled within the environment they live. I have personal experience of this through my own family, where we have assisted fibrosis within the family, and I've seen how just doing a few basics of these 5 principles to their existing house has made a real change to the way that they live, and while they're in the house they're much healthier than anywhere else, and how they've got so much more life. So it's also about healthy living, lots of natural light, lots of consistent temperature and humidity, so we can control the environment, we can help the environment with building in a negative carbon way. We can do everything quite easily. All we've got to think of is, how do we change people's attitudes? How do we get people to think in the correct way? And that's very simple. We start at the basics and we work our way up. I've been trying this for 10 years. When I did my first Passive House in 2012, I can see that house 10 years down the line and how the family are living in it. and how happy they are. Matter of fact, still speak to the client, and he still gets excited about driving to his house in the evening because it's such an amazing place to live, and how much he loves and how healthy he feels within it. And not only that, his bills are zero because of how things are offset with his PVs and stuff. You know, so it is possible. So let's stick to the 5 principles. That's all it is, 5 principles. So we're looking at insulation, air tightness, good ventilation, thermal bridging, good windows. 5 principles. We can also use other stuff as well. We have this planet, we have this incredible thing called the sun. This sun can also offer us heat 365 days of the year, believe it or not, that we get solar gain in some form from it. So a passive house will be designed in a process called PHPP, which is Passive House Planning Package. What this does is this looks at each individual project and looks at the sun orientation, where it is, and whether and whatever we need to do to achieve maximum efficiency within that building. So we'll have big windows to let in light, but we'll have a good amount of shading on the outside. So when the sun comes up in the summer, you're protected from it so you don't overheat. Because that's a bigger problem with a passive house, is not keeping it warm, but overheating. That has to be controlled. But during the winter, when the sun is lower, the shading is designed to let maximum amount of solar gain in to a property. And we can use products within that build to store and hold that energy. We can use earth products, there's clays and straw and stuff, and we can combine those together. And as that energy comes in, we can hold it and store it. It's called thermal mass. That is a real helpful tool to controlling an environment that absorbs energy and holds it. And then when the temperature drops at night, it will release that energy and help to control and ameliorate the environment around it. So there are many, many things we can do. So we need to look at the 3 Ps. The 3 Ps are people, looking after our people, making sure they're healthy, making sure that they live in an environment that is fit for purpose for those people. Okay. The planet, we need to really concentrate on how we are affecting this planet, because we are in a major way. We need to make far less of an impact on what it is we're doing to this amazing planet that we live on. Profits. Now, surprise, surprise, I'm actually talking about a profit. You have to make a profit. If you don't have the money to do what you need to do to prevent damage to the planet and to be able to give people what they need to live happily and hopefully sustainably, they can really make a difference in this world. So we need the 3 Ps, we need that profit, but it needs to be set at a point where everybody can afford it. So that's it. Passive house. That's the ideas of passive house, and maybe a few things around it to which could affect our planet and our lives, and how we can improve things by 5 basic principles. And learn from the past. Let's create what's in the future by not living in the past, by learning from it and developing that, and making the whole planet just a far better, healthier place to live, and making a far less impact on this incredible planet.